Howdy folks, thank you for tuning into my Behind the Mic show for American Songwriter. And thank you to American Songwriter for having me. This is my kitchen, as you can probably tell, here in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a fine, crisp spring day. I'm going to play a few songs for you. Starlight ain't the daylight, but it will just have to do. Starlight will be the only light when I can tell my oh, daylight, when I see you on the street again, will you talk a while as if we're only friends? And starlight will be the only light when I can hold you tight again. Starlight that I wish upon tonight, that all my dreams might come true. Star on high, why can't you hear my plight and send me your love neath skies of blue? Oh, daylight, just another time to hide away and dream about the way it might be. And starlight will be the only light when I can hold you tight again. Starlight will be the only light when I can hold you tight again. Oh, that's when I can hold you tight again. Starlight, thank you. Thank you to all you people out there in streaming land. I gotta figure out the sound on my computer here. And I also might need to turn the gain down. I keep getting messages on my computer and I can't figure out how to mute them. I guess I could probably mute the sound on my computer. Yeah, I'll probably do that. Yeah. Alright. Well, I'm going to answer a few questions I've got here today. And I got them right here. And this is here's some questions I got about the song Starlight. What was the inspiration for this song? Well, you know, I was in the shower and I just kind of had that line, Starlight ain't the daylight, but it'll just have to do, which kind of sounded like, you know, kind of like one of those old Hank Cochran or Harlan Howard songs, you know, real simple kind of country song from the early 60s or late 50s or something, sort of a hillbilly haiku or whatever. Like nightlife ain't a good life, but it's my life, that kind of vibe. I of sung around that. And it sort of wrote itself. It was kind of one of the quicker songs I've written in my life, probably, which is always nice. And yeah, all these questions, you know, how did you use a less is more kind of approach? Well, that's how I did it, repeating a lot of words. Starlight, ain't the daylight, but it will just have to do. Repeating light, it's one of those sort of I guess a Willie Nelson trick or something in country music. Were you able to complete writing the song in one attempt, or was this more of a slow burn process? Well, this one was kind of a one attempt wonder. I didn't really change it too much after I started writing it, so I guess I would consider that a one attempt song, which is kind of unusual for me. And you know, I released this song about a year ago. It was the first single I put out for my album. B-side was a song called Imagining Raindrops, which I will not be playing today. It's another song that I wrote pretty quickly. But yeah, I think this is probably one of the more trad country songs on the record, though. We recorded it, we made it a little crazier. We had this crazy instrumental section that Russ Paul came up with. Russ Paul, the great steel player and guitar player who played on every track on the record, and sort of one of my musical mentors. And he came up with this part that's kind of like, which, you know, sometimes I do acoustically, but sometimes I don't. Depends on my mood. How I'm feeling, you know. So different flavors of that song depending on where you see me and my mood that day or who I'm playing with. I like to change it up, you know. I'm not really a stickler for sticking to arrangements all the time, which is, you know, maybe a personality quirk. Probably infuriates my band members. But you know, I rotate through a lot of people, so you've got to keep it fresh for everyone, including myself. Well, I'm gonna play another one here, I guess. This is the first track on my album, and maybe a slightly unconventional choice for opening a record with a real slow ballad, but I thought it worked, so that's what we did. When my life is over, baby, don't you grieve. Just take me by the riverside, let the mermaids flirt with me, let the mermaids flirt with me, neath the dark and the rolling sea, will lay all day beneath the shade of an old seaweed tree, and I won't be alone in my home, sweet watery home. I'll be fancy free under the sea, let the moon brave the dark and the rolling sea. Lay all day beneath the shade of an old seaweed tree, and I won't be alone in my home, sweet watery home. I'll be fancy free under the sea. Let the mermaids flirt with me. Well, thank you. That's Let the Mermaids Flirt with Me, which is a title that I took from an old Mississippi John Hurt song called Let the Mermaids Flirt with Me. That he didn't write. It was written by a lawyer or somebody, you know, in the 20s, and it was used, at least Mississippi John, at least John Hurt used it for, used the tune that Jimmy Rogers used for Waiting for a Train, if you remember that song. You know, it goes, all along the water tank, leaking in the rain, 1,000 miles away from home, waiting for a train. But that's a little too much of that. Anyway, that's the tune that John used for Let the Mermaids Flirt with Me. So basically all I kind of took was the title and the idea, but I sort of view it as a continuation of the folk process, I guess. You know, that tune used an old Jimmy Rogers song, and this one uses an old title, and it's a different tune, so it's kind of some sort of transfiguration of a folk concept or something. What influence has your California upbringing had on your songwriting? Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely drawn to certain things because of the way I grew up. You know, I was definitely, I don't know if it's really being from California, but I knew a lot of old hippies when I was growing up, and they introduced me to a lot of cool music. So I probably wouldn't have heard about John Hurt if I hadn't had a cool guitar teacher introduce me to that kind of stuff. You know, when I first started playing guitar, I was actually playing classical music, but it didn't really last very long. I went to a symposium, I guess you'd call it, of young classical guitar players that they were having in San Francisco somewhere. I don't even remember the venue. It was somewhere on Turk Street for all you San Franciscans. But I remember going with my dad. I was like 12, and being really impressed by the music, but afterwards realizing that this wasn't going to be for me. So I kind of switched gears at that point. And that was also right around the time that I started playing banjo, so I was getting into bluegrass and that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, and I was a little bit rambly. Are there any artists, songwriters that you've looked up throughout your life and career? Well, certainly Mississippi John Hurt. And then my other hero when I was a kid was Doc Watson. Definitely a big influence as far as my musical path. I don't know if you can necessarily hear it, but you know, it's there. And then probably the more obvious ones are like Elvis and Johnny Cash and Roy Orbison and George Jones and all those cats. You know, so those are probably them. Willie Nelson. Those are probably the biggies, the big influences on me. But yeah, Let the Mermaids Flirt with Me. That song is probably the oldest song that's on the record. I wrote that song in college, and I remember I woke up in the morning and I had the first couple lines and the melody, and I went to go work at the college radio station that I was a DJ at. And while I was waiting for the other DJ to finish up that had the show before me, I wrote that song in one of the extra control rooms. So that song's been with me for a while. It's been close to, probably close to a decade at this point. So it's and I'm not tired of it, so it probably means it's all right. So that's probably the test, if you can stand your own song after 10 years. But that's why it's real special that to me that's the first song on the record, because it's kind of meaningful to me in terms of the role that it's had in the course of my life. And it was the first song that I'd written after a long time. I wrote songs when I was a real little kid, like 12, probably 12 years old through 15, so into high school a little bit. But then I kind of stopped writing songs. I was writing a lot of, other stuff for school and for my own, but I wasn't really writing songs. And then I guess when I was 20, I started writing again, and that was kind of the song that broke the spell, broke the writer's block. So thank you, John Hurt, and thank you to all you mystical creatures and mermaids and vampires and werewolves, and thank you for all the inspiration that you provide. And I got one more song to play for you guys today. This is a song that I actually didn't write. T-Bone wrote this, my producer T-Bone Burnett. And actually, the first time I heard the song was the second day that I knew T-Bone, I guess. So back in 2016, I had the great fortune of having one of my demos land in T-Bone's lap, and I didn't have really anything to do with that. That was my friend Dennis Crouch, who's played on a lot of T-Bone's records, and he somehow got a hold of this through a crazy sequence of events, heard these demos and ended up playing on them, and sent it to T-Bone, and went out to Los Angeles, and I met T-Bone for the first time. And the next day I went over to his house, and he played me this song that he was working on, and he wrote it for a musical that is still in production, I think. I don't know what's going on with the musical, but it's a musical about the life of Roy Rogers, which is a pretty interesting story. And this song was going to be in that musical, and if it ever comes out, it will be in that musical also, as well as on my record. But when T-Bone went into the studio to make this album, suggested that we do this song, which I had been playing kind of just because I thought it was a cool song. And T-Bone was a little bit reticent at first. He didn't really think that the song necessarily was going to fit with the material on the record, or the other song, stylistically. But I had been playing it for a while at that point, and I really liked it, and I had my own version of it. I kind of changed it a little bit too, changed the chords a little bit, so made it my own. This is a song that I think was my last single right before the album came out. It's called I'm Gonna Get Over This Someday. That was an inopportune time to take a drink from that beverage. Anyway, I actually did this in a different key. That was the wrong key. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know this is kind of informal, but I thought it might be cool to show you what my kitchen looks like. My roommate Frank is out right now walking his dog Georgia, so I got the place to myself. Figured I'd come out right where the window is and enjoy some sunshine. So here we go. It's called I'm Gonna Get Over This Someday. I might as well get over it now. Be the judge, and I don't want to hold a grudge. might as well get over it now. Gonna get over this some way, though at the moment I don't know how. I don't wanna give you advice, and I don't want you to pay the price. I'm gonna get over this someday. I might as well get over it now. I don't wanna compete with you. I only wanna be with you. And I don't wanna say goodbye. Cry for you the whole night through. Well, I'm gonna get over this someday. I might as well get over it now. Gonna get over this somewhere, though at the moment I don't know how. I don't wanna have my say, and I don't wanna walk away. I'm gonna get over this someday. I might as well get over it now. Oh, I might as well get over it now. Oh, I might as well get over it now. Oh, I might as well get over it now. Gonna get over it someday. Thank you, guys. So when did T-Bone decide he wanted you to cut this song is one of the questions. Well, he didn't really. Like I said before, he wasn't sure if he even wanted me to, so I kind of insisted because I really like the song. To me, it kind of sounds like something like Cowboy Jack Clement would have written or something in the 50s, kind of like Ballad of a Teenage Queen, or what's the other one? I don't like it, but I guess things happen that way. Kind of in that vein of songs. Sort of a happy song with a serious message. Can you tell us more about how you got connected with T-Bone? So that story is pretty crazy, and it's definitely just a wild cosmic array of circumstances that led to it all working out. And basically, I have a friend named Mark Thornton. He's a guitar player here in Nashville, and one day I was hanging out at his house, and he had bought a microphone. He had ordered a microphone in the mail, which is kind of this crazy, sort of a Space Needle looking microphone from the 50s. I don't even really know like how it worked. But just to test it out, I played a couple songs, and one of them was Mermaids, and the other one was Starlight, I thought. And didn't really think anything of it. I mean, I wasn't even really playing in time. I was just kind of testing the microphone. But a couple weeks roll by, and I get a text from Mark, and he sent me a demo of the songs, and he had put some guitar on it, and a bass player named Dennis Crouch had played some bass on it. And they had turned them into real demos, and that's pretty cool, and I was pretty pleased. And then another couple weeks roll by, and Mark calls me, and he says, hey, Dennis, who played on those demos, he sent the tracks to T-Bone Burnett, and he wants to meet you. So that's really how it happened. I went in and met Dennis for the first time over at Mark's studio, and then the next day I flew to Los Angeles and met T-Bone. So that's really how it worked out. That was in 2016, and took us a while to figure out the best home for the record, but we did, and I've been very fortunate to get to know T-Bone over the years, and by the time we got into the studio, we were friends. When weird. I imagine some people, when they go into the studio with a big producer or any sort of producer, they're probably a little intimidated or nervous, or but by that time we had a rapport, and I knew all the musicians that played on the record. Dennis, who played bass on everything, is kind of my guru. Kind of my Nashville music dad, and same with Russ Paul. So, we had pretty much worked out most of the arrangements, and we were just sort of running through the songs that we'd done a million times before, so it wasn't weird, and we did everything live, and for the most part, and we didn't think too much about it. We just went in there and did it. What advice would you give to aspiring songwriters who are thinking of putting demos together? Well, I know a little bit about this because I also, I write songs for a publishing company called Spirit Music, and there's a whole demo process, and different people like different things. And my feeling about it is that you don't want to, demos serve different purposes. So if you're planning on pitching the song, then you might not want to do a fully fleshed out demo, because then you're kind of dictating how the song should be played, and you might be closing some doors that otherwise would be open for you. So I don't think it's a good idea, generally speaking, to overproduce a demo. I think when you're just guitar and your voice, if you can do it, that's probably best. But if you're making a demo for your producer, or you're making a demo and you're the producer and you just want like a sketch or outline of the song, then in that case you probably do want to produce the crap out of it or whatever. So different things for different different situations. Has T-Bone Burnett helped you grow as an artist and a songwriter? Well, that's a really big question. I didn't even really view myself as a solo artist until the whole T-Bone thing happened. I was playing in cover bands and not really playing my own songs. I was writing songs, but I didn't really have anywhere to play them. I didn't do writers' rounds. I didn't really play the songs out. There was a couple that were more country that I was playing with this band called the Cowpokes that I was playing at that time. So I was doing a little bit of that, but I didn't really conceive of myself as Logan Ledger or whatever. It was more just like I was in bands and doing that thing. So T-Bone really kind of gave me the kick in the butt to take myself seriously or something, I guess. And that's probably the best way to put it, And he's pushed me over the years to continue to write songs that say something, that aren't just because when I started writing songs, I think I was trying to write songs that fit a certain aesthetic or idea of country music or whatever I wanted to do, rather than just write a good song. And I think at the end of the day, you kind of have to just push all the style and all the history and everything aside, and just try to write something good and true to what's going on in your life. Otherwise it's just going to be a contrived mess. And certainly I didn't want to put some sort of throwback retro country record out there that that didn't have anything new to say, or wasn't at least aesthetically interesting. I think if you want to listen to a trad country record, you might as well just put on some Merle Haggard. You couldn't do any better than that. And there's so much great country music from back in the day. You could spend a whole lifetime finding stuff, and you never run out. So well, I think I've come to the end of the hour here, and I'd like to thank you guys so much for tuning in. My name is Logan Ledger, and I invite you to check out my new album. It's out on Rounder Records, and you can stream it or download it anywhere music is available. And thank you so much to American Songwriter for having me on for this Behind the Song series. There's a lot of great other artists that are doing it today, and I encourage you to stick around. So thank you so much. Have a good day.